What is up, everyone? My name is James McCool. I'm the owner of Paydirt and this is going to be another main slate breakdown. This is for the NFL DFS main slate of Week 6. We have moved into the middle of October, coming up on Halloween. We're going to have a fun little Halloween special where I wear a funny hat here pretty soon. Did that a couple years ago. I wonder if I will be able to find the flamingo hat, the infamous flamingo. But regardless, today we're going to be talking about every single game in the main slate, breaking down the injury stuff, the macro stuff, the micro stuff, stuff that you need to know about. So, as usual, if you have not already checked out PaydirtDFS.com, you should go do that. The hockey models are up. They're brand new for this year. They're a range of outcomes model rather than a static baseline model. They're really, really awesome. They're really cool. I'm really proud of that model, and as always, like all of the other sports are still going. We still have NFL, MLB, NHL, esports is still going. We have everything going over there. So if you haven't already checked out the site, you should go do that. If you use the code NFL season, all caps, NFLSZN, you'll get $5 off your first purchase, your first month. So go check that out. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We have a good slate to break down here. All of the firepower is on this slate. We have the Buffalo Kansas City game, which everyone is really, really excited about. We'll talk about that game last. We also have Lamar Jackson on the slate. We have Jalen Hurts later. He's probably the only super high upside guy that is not on this slate. So should be a fun one to break down. As usual, we're going to go with the lowest over-under first and then move forward into the highest over-under. That way I don't get caught up talking about the good games and then leave no time for the bad games later. Let's go ahead and get started on that thing. Here you can see the over-unders and all of the expected passing touchdowns or expected touchdown distributions between passing and rushing. So we're going to get started here with the Rams and the Panthers. So this game is an over-under of just 41, only expected to have 111 total plays. Carolina running the lowest amount of plays in the entire league and the lowest amount of plays so far for any team in the league in the last decade or something like that. Really, really bad team, really boring team, really slow team. Matt Rule just got fired. Baker Mayfield is injured and not playing, so it's going to be PJ Walker. I mean, it's just complete fucking train wreck. There's nothing more really to say about it. The only player that's valuable there is going to be Christian McCaffrey. So, we'll do the macro breakdown anyway. So the Rams 10-point favorites here. 68% pass based on the adjusted script, team total of 25.5, 1.78 expected passing touchdowns, 1.07 expected rushing touchdowns. Carolina, 10-point underdog, 61% adjusted pass rate, 1.02 expected passing touchdowns, just team total of 15.5. So the big thing here is that Cam Akers is out. He's a healthy scratch, so it's just going to be Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown. I do expect it to be a little bit more of a split than people are hoping that it will be. Everybody is wanting Darrell Henderson to just be the guy. He's got a good price. He's only 5,100. I have him projected fine over at Paydirt, especially fine for the price. But I wouldn't get too caught up. The Rams like to have multiple running backs in their stable. They don't really like to use just one guy. They've shown that before. So I expect Darrell Henderson to be a good play, not an incredible play. Outside of that, it's the usual suspects. Just Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Tyler Higbee on this offense at this point. It's 55% of the total target share and air yards or something like that. It's pretty crazy. You can use Ben Skowronek if you're desperate for some value, but there's really no reason to do so. Overall, this game really just boils down to Darrell Henderson Jr. and Cooper Kupp. You can use Christian McCaffrey if you feel like getting a little frisky, but I wouldn't touch anything else. The last piece of this is it was looking like the Panthers were going to be the heavy defense chalk up against the Rams, but I don't think they will anymore. And the Panthers defense is probably in play in all formats. If they were going to be chalk, absolutely not. But if they're not going to be popular, then I think you can play them here. Moving on to the next game. This game also has a 41 over-under. It is Indianapolis and Jacksonville. So Indianapolis is a 1.5 point favorite. I don't know how. They have a team total of 21.25, 64% adjusted pass rate, 1.74 expected passing touchdowns, 0.64 expected rushing touchdowns. Jacksonville, 1.5 point underdog. Don't know how. Jacksonville's a better team for sure. 56% adjusted pass rate, expected for 1.06 passing touchdowns, 1.15 expected rushing touchdowns. So, this game, what does the game betting model say? I guess I should probably consult that before I say that one team is better than the other one, because my models know better than I do. Looks like, yeah, I have Jacksonville as a considerably better team. I have Jacksonville actually with the highest win percentage on the slate. Game betting model has them 73% to win. So I don't know why Indianapolis is favored here. They shouldn't be. Jonathan Taylor's out. They have backup running backs. Phillip Lindsay and Deion Jackson are filling in. Sure, Jacksonville is missing Marvin Jones Jr., but like, it's not like that really moves the needle all that much, you know? So I don't know why Indianapolis is favored here. Overall, Jacksonville, they should win this game, but they're still a pretty boring team. Trevor Lawrence has been good, but he's been good as a game manager. He just hasn't been making very many mistakes. It's been mostly James Robinson and Travis Etienne holding it down and not making mistakes in the rushing game and having enough upside to justify their game plan. Indianapolis, Matt Ryan is just so fucking washed. Like, he's so bad. They're the least aggressive team in the league. If you go over to the site and look at the aggressive throw index, I'm pretty sure off the top of my head that they are throwing aggressively the least amount in the league, the lowest amount under league average. So Michael Pittman just not in play. Alec Pierce just not in play. Deion Jackson is in play, but with Jacksonville looking like they're going to be massive favorites, I'm not sure how much rushing work he will actually get. I did go in and up the adjusted pass rate for Indianapolis a little bit after the news Jonathan Taylor was not going to play. So Deion Jackson, I think, is the one that you would want here. I think he's an okay option. He's projected pretty badly, but I think that he's an okay option, all things considered. If you want to get off of a bit of the chalk, I don't think that he will be popular. Outside of that, there's not a whole bunch of guys here that we love. Travis Etienne projects pretty well. He's up there kind of towards that Darrell Henderson range. And then it's not really any of the passing backs. So it's pretty much just Travis Etienne here. On to the next game, Cincinnati, New Orleans. This is a 43 over-under. Cincinnati 3-point favorite, implied for 23 actual points. They have a 61% adjusted pass rate, implied for 1.42 passing touchdowns. New Orleans, on the other hand, 3-point underdog, implied for 20 actual points, just a 53% adjusted pass rate. Implied for 1.25 passing touchdowns. So New Orleans just is decimated right now. They don't have Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, or Jarvis Landry to hold down the wide receiver corps. They are also still starting Andy Dalton. So they called up Keith Kirkwood, some other guy that I have never heard of, and activated Kevin White onto the active roster. They're just... It's really, really bad. I don't expect them to be able to move the ball really here at all. Cincinnati should be significantly larger favorites than just 3 points. I don't understand this line either. T. Higgins is a game-time decision. I expect him to play, though. Regardless, this screams Joe Mixon. This screams it's a Joe Mixon spot. And Joe Mixon doesn't look like he's going to be chalk. Currently, Joe Mixon projected for just 9.65% ownership in larger field GPPs. He's only 6,900 on DraftKings. And I don't see how New Orleans moves the ball at all. Cincinnati's defense is not terrible. So I think they should be able to hold in literally the only skill player that matters here, Alvin Kamara. So this just screams the Joe Mixon spot. I don't know why else I would play anyone else in this game outside of maybe Jamar Chase, who, if T. Higgins is out, Jamar Chase should end up with like 10 to 15 targets or something like that, have a really good game in that aspect. So really just Joe Mixon here. I'm not interested in anybody else. Next game, Cleveland and New England. So this is a 43 over-under as well. Cleveland is a 2.5-point favorite, implied to score 22.75 real life points. Just a 49.86% adjusted pass rate, really low, lowest in the league, I believe. Implied to score 1.02 passing touchdowns, but 1.52 rushing touchdowns. New England, on the other hand, 2.5-point underdog here, implied to score 20.25, 50% adjusted pass rate, implied to score 0.95 passing touchdowns and 1.32 rushing touchdowns. So this should just be, good old school football, just rushing the ball constantly from both sides. There are wide receivers that matter here. Both Amari Cooper and Jacoby Brissett certainly are in play based on really strong market shares of the targets and really strong production as of late. Jacoby Brissett has not been bad. He's been able to keep Amari Cooper involved and with a decent floor, and same thing with Bailey Zapp. He has looked okay for Jacoby Myers. So both Jacoby Myers and Amari Cooper are in play here, but really the plays that you want are going to be Nick Chubb and Ramondre Stevenson, specifically Ramondre Stevenson, though. Ramondre Stevenson, only 6K, projects incredibly well. Also projects to likely be the second highest owned player on the entire slate, just behind Eno Benjamin, who we will get to later. But Ramondre Stevenson, he's the chalk that you really, really want here. There's really no reason to expect them to use a lot of Pierre Strong. There's no Damian Harris. He should get the vast majority of the rushing work. I think I have him for 65% of the rushing work or something like that. And that includes almost one full projected rushing touchdown. So it's rare to find that, and this game should be pretty boring. We don't expect Cleveland to get out to a lead that should neutralize Ramondre Stevenson. So just go with Ramondre Stevenson and everything. He's probably the running back that I feel the best about this week. Outside of that, really not interested in a lot in this game. You can take shots on Jacoby Myers and Amari Cooper if you'd like. I like them as a secondary correlation quite a bit. Moving on to the next game, we have San Francisco and Atlanta. San Francisco is a 4.5-point favorite. This is a 44 over-under. San Francisco implied for 24.25. They have a 53% adjusted pass rate, implied for 1.04 passing touchdowns, 1.67 rushing touchdowns. That is the most on the slate by a pretty decent amount. Atlanta, 4.5-point underdogs, implied for 19.75. They have a 51% adjusted pass rate, implied for 0.81 passing touchdowns, 1.4 rushing touchdowns. So this is another game. This game is very, very similar to this Cleveland-New England game where San Francisco, they have Deebo Samuel, who is going to be usable for sure, but the emphasis is certainly on Jeff Wilson Jr., who his price just will not go up. He's 6,200, and he projects just as well as Ramondre Stevenson, but he's going to be like 1/5 as owned. So if you're looking for a pivot off of Ramondre Stevenson, say that you eat all of the chalk in other games, and you don't want to eat the chalk on Ramondre, certainly just swap straight to Jeff Wilson Jr., who looks really good, is essentially the exact same play at like 20% of the ownership. Like Jeff Wilson Jr. should come in under 10%. Ramondre Stevenson might hit 40% in some contests. So that's something to think through and something to utilize in large field GPPs. But Deebo Samuel exists, and he's fine. And then on the other side for Atlanta, Drake London exists and is fine. Kyle Pitts is back, but like you shouldn't play him anyway. As far as the running backs go for Atlanta, I think it's Tyler Aguilar who is going to be the main guy, but he's 5K and doesn't project all that well. It'd be much better to go either Travis Etienne or Darrell Henderson Jr. or Eno Benjamin, Kenneth Walker. Like there are so many other running backs that are significantly better than he is. He's still going to split work with Caleb Hunt for sure. And Atlanta just is not a very good team. They don't score a lot of points. So certainly think that Jeff Wilson is the best player in this game. Deebo Samuel is usable, but this is really just a Jeff Wilson game for sure. Next game, we have Green Bay and the Jets. So Green Bay, 7.5-point favorite here, 45 over-under for the game. Their team total is 26.25. They have a 55% adjusted pass rate, they're implied to score 1.83 passing touchdowns, 1.11 rushing touchdowns. The Jets, 7.5 point underdogs, implied to score 18.75, have a 62% adjusted pass rate, implied to score 0.97 passing touchdowns, 1.13 rushing touchdowns. The game betting model has has New York Jets as favorites here. Green Bay has been bad, like actually bad. They're a complete mess. They don't have a consistent target tree. They don't have a real wide receiver one. Aaron Rodgers doesn't trust his wide receivers. Matt LaFleur is getting outcoached. They're not using Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon enough. Like, they're not a good team right now. The Jets, on the other hand, look good. And especially with Jack Wilson up there, like, they looked okay with Joe Flacco at quarterback. And Zach Wilson is an upgrade on Joe Flacco. So, really interesting here that Green Bay is 7.5 point favorite. I don't think they should be. Game betting model doesn't think they should be either. So there's going to be meat on the bone here. I don't think you should stack Green Bay, but I do think that, one, you can stack the Jets. Both Corey Davis and Garrett Wilson look good. Elijah Moore looks fine. Like, their wide receiver corps looks okay. But outside of that, you can use Breece Hall for sure. Like, there's no reason to think that Breece Hall can't be effective on the ground. He projects pretty well. He's only 5,800. Again, like, this range of 5,500 to like 6K is just stacked. Or even 5K to 6,500 is just stacked. It's really, really good. Breece Hall is there. You can even use Michael Carter if you want to. Like, he's still getting plenty of work, and he's getting quite a bit of red zone work. He doesn't project near as well as Breece Hall, but he projects pretty well. So certainly think that both of them are in play, but the only other really good play in this game is going to be Aaron Jones, and he's just really fucking expensive. Like, he's worth it, I guess, but at 7,600, you can play Aaron Jones, or you can play Saquon Barkley, or you can play Leonard Fournette, right? Like, that's kind of that range. Or Dalvin Cook, I guess. Dalvin Cook projects terribly. But, like, those guys project up there with Jeff Wilson and Alvin Kamara and Ramondre Stevenson and Joe Mixon. I just don't see a reason to go above 7K. Even if I have the money, I'm just probably going to play Joe Mixon or drop down. You know, I just don't see a reason to move up to 7,600 for Aaron Jones. So, certainly think that Breece Hall is the best play in this game. If you want to stack the Jets, I have no problem with that as well. Bring it back with Romeo Doubs and make it a pretty easy game stack. I think that Doubs ends up being the guy in this game, but it's unclear. Like, the target tree just hasn't been consistent, so it's hard to tell. Overall, though, take the Jets money line. At the very least, take them to cover. Like, they'll cover 7.5. Into the next one, Baltimore and the Giants. This game is fun. So this is a 45 over/under. Baltimore 5.5 point favorite. I don't know why they're only 5.5 point favorites. Again, like, these lines don't make any sense to me. They're implied to score 25.25 real life points, 40 or 54% adjusted pass rate, implied for 1.48 passing touchdowns, 1.34 rushing touchdowns. The Giants, 5.5 point underdogs, implied to score 19.75. Again, 54% adjusted pass rate, but implied to score 1.02 passing touchdowns and 1.19 rushing touchdowns. Baltimore is just so good, and the Giants are not so good. I mean, they're fine. I think that Daboll has done well. I think that Daniel Jones really earned a new contract with that win against Green Bay. I think that was kind of like his turning point, and hopefully something clicks for him and he ends up being like a league average quarterback at the very least. But I don't think that they're better than Baltimore. I think that the Ravens in this spot should probably just smash and really just kind of assert their will. Lamar Jackson is probably the best pivot on the entire slate. If we're considering ownership, like, Josh Allen should likely be something like 25% today. Patrick Mahomes, I think, will be somewhere in the 15 to 20% range. Geno Smith, I think, is going to end up somewhere in the 15% range. And then I'm going to guess Lamar Jackson is like 5% owned. Lamar Jackson at 8,100, I think, has as much upside as any quarterback in the league, and especially on this slate, right? Like, he can score as much as Josh Allen. He can score as much as Patrick Mahomes. And he's going to be like 5% owned. So I think that's just a spot that you really need to consider and leverage in your builds. Mark Andrews is going to be the guy again. He had 36% target share and air yards last week with no Rashad Bateman. So he's just kind of the guy. He's going to be higher owned for sure. He should be the second highest owned tight end on the slate, if not the highest owned, because he's cheaper than Travis Kelce. He'll probably be the highest owned, but it's just going to be between those guys and Tyler Higbee, who's the value play if you want it. But Mark Andrews, fantastic. Devin Duvernay stepped into the Rashad Bateman role last week and did a phenomenal job. He had career highs in receiving yards, so I like him as well. He's pretty cheap. There's just so many ways that you can go about this game and the way that you want to stack it, right? There's just so many ways to pivot off of that really high-owned Buffalo-Kansas City game later with a Baltimore stack. And you can bring it back as well with either Richie James or Daniel Bellinger, or the best play, Saquon Barkley. So if the Giants are going to stay in this game, they have to feed Saquon Barkley. There's no way that they can stay in it with that wide receiver core in the state that it is. It's just going to be Daniel Jones and Barkley. So the best way to go about this would be a Baltimore stack of Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and just bring back Saquon Barkley. And that's a lot of pay up, right? But that's a lot of pay up that you would have if you were stacking Kansas City Buffalo anyway. It's about the same amount of salary that you're spending on those three players if you were going to be stacking Buffalo or Kansas City side, right? So I think that it's worthwhile to do that, and I think that it gives you plenty of upside, and I think that it's something that in large field GPPs is not going to be a very common build path at all. So really like this game, really like the Baltimore side. Think they scored plenty of points here. Next game, it is Minnesota-Miami. So Minnesota, 3-point favorites over Miami. Game total is 45. Minnesota is implied to score 24 real-life points. They have a 66% adjusted pass rate, implied for 1.8 passing touchdowns, 0.88 rushing touchdowns. Miami, 3-point underdogs, implied to score 21. They have a 65% adjusted pass rate, implied to score 1.59 passing touchdowns, and 0.76 rushing touchdowns. So Miami still without Tua or Teddy Bridgewater. Going to be starting Skylar Thompson. Am I right about that? I think I'm right about that. Skylar Thompson. I need to go make sure that Teddy Bridgewater is not playing. I don't think that he is. Oh no, he's playing. Teddy Bridgewater is cleared from the concussion protocol today. He'll be active for week 6 and serve as the backup on Sunday to rookie Skylar Thompson. Okay, just kidding. He's playing, but he is not actually going to be playing. Oops, there we go. He's not actually going to be playing. He's just going to be the backup. So it is going to be Skylar Thompson. I think that this Miami offense is still going to be okay, but like they're not going to be near as efficient as they should be. Vegas still has confidence in them to score points. They are still implied for 21 real-life points. They're only 3-point underdogs to Minnesota. So there's upside here. However, it wouldn't surprise me if Minnesota just like had a chokehold on this game. I think that very likely, I don't want to stack either side, even though Minnesota does actually project pretty well. Minnesota is up there in terms of like this third tier of teams. It's basically like Buffalo, Seattle, Baltimore, and then like 5 teams, Minnesota, Tampa Bay, Arizona, Kansas City, and the Rams, that are all in that third tier of stack projections. And Minnesota's right there, mostly because of Justin Jefferson. So the way that I would probably go about this is I'm fine stacking up a secondary of either Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill or Justin Jefferson and Jalen Waddle. And then just kind of ignoring the other stuff here. But you could game stack. You could go with Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, bring it back to Tyreek Hill. You could go with, in something like super large field, like the $3 or the Millie Maker, you could go with Skylar Thompson, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle, bring it back with Justin Jefferson. There are ways to go about it, but this game total is okay. It's sitting at 45. It should be a close game. Vegas likes it. There's 122 projected total plays, which is not bad. Both teams are more pass heavy. Both teams are projected for more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. Like, there's things to like in this game. I don't think that it's the worst. I don't think that I'll get there because I only have 3 lineups, but If I had like 100 lineups, yeah, I could stack Miami. I could stack Minnesota. I wouldn't mind stacking either side of that. I think there's going to be plenty of upside to be had for either one of these teams. As I mentioned, I'm just never into using Dalvin Cook. His workload is just really not that good. He basically projects the same as Raheem Mostert for $2,000 more, so I'm not going to touch that. But regardless, I think Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle all certainly in play here. And you can stack up either side if you want. Going on to the next one, Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh. Tampa Bay is a 9.5-point favorite here, implied to score 27.75. They have a 75% adjusted pass rate, implied to score 2.03 passing touchdowns, the most on the slate, and 1.07 rushing touchdowns. Pittsburgh, 9.5-point underdogs, implied to score 18.25. They only have a 60% adjusted pass rate, implied to score 0.98 passing touchdowns, the third lowest on the slate. Fourth lowest, sorry. 1.06 rushing touchdowns. So Kenny Pickett looked okay. Not great, but okay. Tampa Bay is right back to just being exceptionally pass heavy. I think they just need a little bit of a ramp up period and get Tom, to start divorcing Giselle so that he can focus more on football. And now they're just straight back to super rush heavy, super pass heavy. Chris Godwin is back and healthy. Mike Evans is back and healthy. They don't have Julio Jones. They do have Russell Gage. They've been using Rachaad White more to kind of spell Leonard Fournette a little bit, but Leonard Fournette still getting a massive amount of the receiving work like he did last year during the healthy season. Tampa Bay at 9.5-point favorites. I think you have to have interest in them. I do think that a Tampa Bay with Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin looks really good. You can bring it back with either one of Deontay Johnson or George Pickens. I think that people are super infatuated with George Pickens right now, which is fine, but Deontay Johnson still got a massive amount of the work. Still looked really, really good. If you think that Kenny Pickett is an upgrade for this offense, then you don't think that it's just for George Pickens. You also think that it is for Deontay Johnson to a large effect. So Pittsburgh actually doesn't project super badly for their price. When it comes to 5X percentage, they hit 5X of Kenny Pickett, Deontay Johnson, and George Pickens. They have a 5X percentage of 4%, which is acceptable. 4X percentage of 24%, which again is acceptable. Ownership should be really, really low. So I think that they're a really interesting spot, but I do certainly prefer the Tampa Bay side. And, that side is certainly worth stacking. I don't know if I'll get there because there are Tampa Bay is probably the fifth highest team on my list here. But I do think that they're interesting, and we'll see what optimizations say a little bit later, but certainly have interest there. All right, now we're getting into the good games. So Arizona-Seattle. This game is a 50 over-under. Arizona is a 2.5-point favorite, implied to score 26.25. Why the fuck is Arizona a favorite here? Really, why is Arizona a favorite here? They haven't shown that they should be a favorite in any game, period. Especially not against a Seattle team that looks really good. Geno Smith has the highest QB rating in the league. Why is Arizona a favorite here? They have a 64% adjusted pass rate, implied to score 1.76 passing touchdowns, 1.18 rushing touchdowns. Seattle, 2.5-point underdog, implied to score 23.75. They have a 59% adjusted pass rate, implied to score 1.7 passing touchdowns, 0.96 rushing touchdowns. Seattle should be favorite here. Doesn't make any sense why Arizona would be a favorite. I don't understand that line at all. The big thing here is that Rashad Penny is out for the season with a broken life. The poor guy, he has been incredible for all of the games that he's played healthy. He's been fantastic. And then he just can't stay healthy. It's just a bummer. Probably missing out on millions of dollars in his life. But regardless, I think that Seattle is in a really, really good spot here. Without Rashad Penny, it should be Ken Walker, who ends up being the main guy for them. I have him projected fine. Yeah, I have him projected fine. He's 5,400, projected there with Travis Etienne and Raheem Mostert, and right under Darrell Henderson. So I think he's fine. It's not a bad play. It just depends on how you want to attack this game overall. The stack looks really good. The stack has the second highest projection. Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett. Geno Smith, as I mentioned, has the highest QB rating in the league. There are some warning signs here, though. I mentioned it in the stats and stacks article, but basically, I think that Seattle is benefiting a lot from some incredibly efficient play and some luck, certainly a little bit of extra variance their way. Because their baseline rates are kind of starting to fall a little bit and starting to normalize into some league averages. Like their pass rate is about league average now. Their aggressiveness is about league average now. They're finding their upside through efficiency. So that efficiency needs to continue in order for them to be a really good, strong, elite offense. I don't know if the efficiency is going to continue. I think they've been running pretty hot in terms of that. That said, they do project very well, and they're not expensive enough. The stack of Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett only costs $18,000 on DraftKings. More expensive on FanDuel for sure, but just not expensive enough. The ownership looks really high. This should be the second or third highest owned stack, depending on how owned Kansas City is. I think that it's basically going to be Buffalo is the highest owned, and then Kansas City, and then Seattle. And Seattle, Kansas City are going to be 1A, 1B just because of the price on Seattle being so low. But Seattle looks like a really, really good stack. You can bring it back with Marquise Brown. You can bring it back with Zach Ertz. Or you can bring it back with Eno Benjamin, who is the other main thing here. There's no James Conner, and there's no Darrell Williams. So it's basically just Eno Benjamin, and then they brought up Corey Clement from the practice squad. He is active today. So you're going to have Eno Benjamin be massive chalk. He should be the highest owned player on the slate. He's only 4,600 and projects for a full complement of snaps. All of that being said, Arizona's a bad team. I typically don't like to eat chalk on bad teams, especially if it's a running back going into a spot where, he's going to need to find the end zone to really kill you. Like, if Eno Benjamin ends with, I have him projected for 13 rushing attempts and 57 rushing yards, and like 4 receptions or something like that. If he ends with 12 fantasy points, like, he doesn't kill you. But if he gets 13 carries, 57 yards, and a rushing touchdown, and scores 19 fantasy points, then, you're probably shot. So Eno Benjamin, certainly the play in cash, but in GPPs, I think he is well worth a fade at really, really high elevated ownership on a team that I just don't think is good, against a team that I think should end up being able to assert their will and be the better play. Like, honestly, I'd much rather have the Ken Walker side than the Eno Benjamin side. Both of them are stepping into basically the same position. I just think that Seattle is the much better team. So I much prefer them and their side and all of their players. So let's move on to this last game. This is Buffalo, Kansas City. This is a rematch of probably one of the best games of the entire decade that we had last year, where Kansas City ends up coming back to win, like driving down the field in like 23 seconds or something like that to get the win. It's an over-under of 54. Buffalo is a 70% adjusted pass rate, 2.5-point favorites, implied score 28.25 real-life points, implied for 2.01 passing touchdowns, 1.15 rushing touchdowns. Kansas City, 2.5-point underdogs. The first time that Kansas City has been a home underdog, I think. Implied score 27.75, 61% adjusted pass rate with 1.79 implied passing touchdowns. I mean, what do you want me to say about it? Like, it's fucking Kansas City versus Buffalo. These games are usually really, really good. Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are obviously incredible. They're playing at a really high level right now. Josh Allen's just breaking fantasy. Their wide receiver core is much healthier than it was last week, which is not a good thing. I talked about that in the Stats and Stacks article. Again, you should go read that. It's free over on the site, paydirtfs.com. It's not necessarily a good thing that the wide receiver core is healthy for fantasy, right? So last week, it was pretty easy to just go with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, and Khalil Shakur. Any combination of those three guys was going to be fine, and they all paid off. They all paid off well for their salaries. This week, though, you add Dawson Knox and Isaiah McKenzie into the mix, and now that ball can be spread around a lot more, and that's what Josh Allen likes to do anyway. They have so many weapons that there's no reason for him to just tee into Stephon Diggs or Gabe Davis or whatever. So I think that Josh Allen is an incredible play, but you're kind of playing roulette with whoever the wide receivers are going to be. I think the vast majority of people are going to start with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, which is an expensive combo. They're going to try to get Gabe Davis. They probably won't be able to, so they'll go either Dawson Knox or Isaiah McKenzie and try to make that work so that they can then fit in Travis Kelce, right? Like, that's going to be the stack that people want to get to, is Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Travis Kelce. It's going to be hard to afford, but there's plenty of value to make it happen. So, on the other hand, for the Kansas City side, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Juju Smith-Schuster is what you want to try to aim for. And then if you try to bring that back with Stephon Diggs, again, that's expensive. That's why Eno Benjamin is going to be so highly owned. It's going to be an expensive stack to go either way. For the most part, I'm fine with it. I will try to get some. We'll see what optimizations say. But my assumption here is that I'm going to end up with more Seattle and more Baltimore than I do with Buffalo and Kansas City. Mostly just because when you look at the prices involved here, like a Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Gabe Davis stack is $23,000 on DraftKings. Yeah, it projects for the highest, but that's almost half of your total salary on 3 players. That's hard to make work. And it's going to force you into using guys like Eno Benjamin and the cheap guys, Eno Benjamin and Darrell Henderson as a combo so that you can fit in this Buffalo Kansas City stack. It's just going to force you into some decisions that kind of suck, and I'm just not super into it. Now, that there are ways that you can pivot away from Darrell Henderson and Eno Benjamin, there's plenty of value to make it work, but I don't love it, and honestly, I would rather try to find a little bit more value in my stacks. All of that being said, if you do stack Buffalo and Kansas City, I think that you should do like 3 players from one team and 2 from the other. The only way that these price tags get paid off is if this game goes off the fucking rails, right? So if this game has 70 real life points in it, then you're going to need this game in order to win GPPs. If it only has 54, these players are kind of priced effectively for 54 over under. So that might not even get you there. This game has to go over the total in order for you to actually get there. So I think that there is a lot of value in really game stacking this, like 5 players from this game, or just doing a secondary correlation of something like Juju Smith-Schuster and Stephon Diggs. Like that's probably my preference here. And tying that into another stack, like a Baltimore stack, or a Minnesota stack, or a Tampa Bay stack. I probably prefer the secondary correlations just because the prices here are so high. And if this game ends up only scoring 40 real-life points, then it's going to bust. So, and if this game busts, obviously, then the combinations of Darrell Henderson and Eno Benjamin end up likely busting as well for a lot of people. So that'll pass about 25-30% of the field. Anyway, that is all of the games from the worst to the best. So this is a pretty good slate. I'm pretty excited about it. I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on it. There's plenty of value to make things work, and there's a lot of mid-range, and I like mid-range slates because people mostly try to go studs, stars and studs. Or what is that statement? Anyway, I can't think, it's too early in the morning, but I typically like going with mid-range value when people are trying to go a high-low build. I like doing that mid-range kind of stuff. So pretty excited about this slate. If you want projections, range of outcomes, or any of that kind of stuff, we have it all over at paydirtdfs.com. You'll find lots of dedicated models. There's a lot of free research sheets over there as well, so you can check those out for NFL. If you have not joined the Discord, you should join the Discord. There's a free link, again, over there in the Stats and Stacks article, as well as over on the site in Member Tools. My name is James McCool. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that we win all of the money and have a fun review of next week. Again, thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys later.